Hi. So most people just use AI like a search engine with a little bit on top of that, or they just ask questions and that's it. Last week or over the last couple of days, I found a new way to use AI, and I'm using now Claude as my chief of staff. You know, if you watched The Fifth Element, which is a great movie, by the way, in one of the ending scenes, there's this person who is whispering things into the president's ear, like you have 19 meetings after this one and something like that. That's what a chief of staff is. And I accidentally stumbled into basically turning Claude into my chief of staff. And I wanted to share some details around that in this video. So I love my bullet journal first. I've been using bullet journals for many years now. First on paper, and now I'm using my Kindle Scribe as a bullet journal. I love them because they're haptic. There's something about handwriting that makes it very intentional and thoughtful. So my daily practice is to write everything that I want to do into my bullet journal, go over my calendar and all that stuff. But I never really found a good way to track projects. I tried tracking projects in my bullet journal, and there's a whole system for that. Didn't quite work. I read a great book about personal Kanban and tried it out with sticky notes inside my bullet journal. That didn't stick too. So yeah. So totally unrelated, I came across this plugin for Claude, or Claude Cowork, which is called Personal Productivity Plugin for Cowork. And being a productivity junkie, I had to try it out. The great thing about this plugin is that it really starts by letting you customize it. And I began wondering, wait, if I'm using my bullet journal and the handwritten method, do I really need to switch into something digital? Or what is the right way to combine the digital AI world of Claude and productivity with it, and my intentionally handwritten analog world of my bullet journal? And somehow we settled on putting all of the project work and the repeating tasks, like the weekly reviews and my calendar integration, because my calendar of course still lives on iPhone and on my Mac. So everything that is calendar, projects, and repeating tasks should be handled by Claude using the productivity plugin, and my daily tasks and the bullet journal practice, I would keep it analog. So that's kind of like the separation that we settled on. And that's when Claude came up with this term, chief of staff. So it basically proposed, hey, I could be your chief of staff, giving you like the daily briefing with, here are your daily meetings, here's what you need to keep in mind of, here's the weather, all of the information that good chief of staff people give their executives in the morning together with their cup of coffee. So yeah, we tried this out, and I think the breakthrough for me was this chief of staff thinking, and that's when it really clicked for me. Claude would not just be another productivity tool, it would be an intelligent, forward-thinking chief of staff for me that keeps track of everything I need to keep track on and lets me focus on my daily activities. So what does it actually do? So every morning I can ask it for my daily briefing, and I get all of my daily appointments, the longer running tasks, an update on the current projects, Kanban style, all delivered to me. We briefly discuss anything that changed, anything I need to keep track on, anything that comes to my mind, and then Claude makes a note if necessary. We also work together on a weekly review, bullet journal styles, by looking forward 3 weeks into the future, into the calendar, figuring out what needs to be done before these meetings, going over the monthly task list, all of this stuff, and also there's a monthly review. So all of these review type activities, all of the long-term stuff, that's what I handle with Claude, my chief of staff. There are 3 lessons I learned from this that I wanted to share. The first one is, I think experimentation is key. I would never have thought about this chief of staff concept when I initially started trying out and experimenting with the productivity plugin. So just start playing around. And I also wasn't really aware of my lack of long-term project management practice, if you will, until after I started actively brainstorming with Claude what it can do for me. And then we actually settled on using Trello boards for Kanban and keeping track of the project goals in project checklists and stuff like that. So all of this thinking really came to fruition as I really was experimenting. So keep experimenting with AI to really identify what your use cases are. And the second lesson is you still need to own your solution. If you just activate the productivity plugin, it'll try to be helpful. It will talk to you. You'll kind of settle into your own routine. But you have to realize that it's all living inside a virtual machine somewhere, and that virtual machine might vanish. And what I also didn't realize in the beginning is that the context window is the context window when you ask or interact with Claude in a different task or in the normal chat and not in Claude Cowork. It doesn't know it's your chief of staff. It doesn't have the right context. So we work together on finding better ways of making all of its configuration and all of the data persistent. So of course we're using an external calendar through the MCP for Google Calendar for connecting to actually multiple Google calendars. And that's another nice thing. It pulls all of the meetings from multiple calendars and gives me this unified view. We settled on using the Trello MCP for keeping track of projects and making them persistent outside of Claude. We are keeping all of the files and also the configuration files like claude.md and tasks and standard operating procedures, all of that. We keep them in a directory that is synced to Dropbox. So that's just me being the solutions architect thinking about high availability here. But you need to understand that it's still early days. You need to figure out how to make this persistent and how to integrate Claude Cowork with your other tools and how to give it a directory that is dependable and that it can use for durability and for keeping track of things. Now the third lesson is, I think that everybody talks about agentic AI. And honestly, it's just a buzzword until you identify a real problem that you can solve with something like agentic AI or something else, right? So always focus on the problem you're solving. And even if it's a problem that you can't really articulate, like in my case, just work on the problem, try to understand the problem, and then work backwards from the problem towards some kind of solution. Use AI to help you figure out the thought process. And if you end up using agentic AI to solve a problem, make it all about solving the problem, not about, hey, I am the modern person, I know how to use agentic AI. Agentic AI is hype until you give it a real problem and you solve that real problem, then it starts becoming useful. So the future. Just yesterday, Anthropic launched a new feature for Claude Cowork. That feature is called Dispatch. And essentially Dispatch lets me talk to my Claude Cowork instance on my laptop through my mobile phone using the Claude mobile phone app, which is great because now I have something like a walkie-talkie that I can use to talk to Claude Cowork and all of the things it has access to, the MCPs, the local files, other integrations using my mobile phone. And just while I was walking here to this spot in the forest, I remembered something and I just pulled out my mobile phone and told Claude Cowork, hey, remember this, and it worked beautifully. So I think the new dispatch feature is a great step forward in integrating the Claude mobile app with the Claude desktop app and a persistent Claude Cowork session running on your computer that can do real things for you while you're on the road. And another thing I set up right today is I gave Claude its own email account on my own email server. So now I can forward emails to Claude Cowork and let it help me with those. For example, when I want to update some status, or when I want to tell it, hey, here is what this person said, and then Claude keeps track of that. By the way, Claude also keeps track of my contacts. So we are building my own personal CRM, if you will, customer relationship management. So we are building our own contact database. We are using Obsidian Markdown documents so that I can also take a look at it using Obsidian, update notes and stuff like that. So I'm basically telling Claude how to use Obsidian as my customer relationship management system, and it works really well. So again, that's another thing that a chief of staff can do for you. So Dispatch is great. I gave it my own, or its own email address, so I can just forward emails and tell it to update something. I'm not quite there yet with letting Claude write emails for me. That would be too dangerous. That's the reason why I gave it its own email address, so it can never impersonate me in any case. And yeah, the other thing we are going to do real soon now is I'm now going to build a Kaizen skill. Kaizen is the Japanese practice of continuous improvement. And since I've done quite a few iterations of improving on the productivity plugin for Claude to become my chief of staff, we are going to do this again, maybe on a weekly cadence, and also we'll use Kaizen to improve my overall AI workflow with Claude. For example, what MCPs am I using and why? Can we optimize here? What skills should I be using? What skills am I using today? What other skills are out there? But also, what are the things that I keep explaining to Claude over and over again that we should be turning into a skill or something? So I think continuous improvement is that's a real kicker for a setup like this, where you have an intelligent assistant. You can kick back ideas back and forth. You can evolve together. You can improve your systems together. And adding that continuous improvement practice is really great. So I'm going to turn this into its own skill. So that's about it. Try out the personal productivity plugin. It's an official plugin from Anthropic for Claude. It works with Claude Cowork. By the way, a colleague asked me, when should I use Claude Chat versus Claude Cowork? I think actually there's nothing wrong with using Cowork all the time. Cowork is just more powerful than the regular Claude Chat because it has its own working directory. It can fire up an agent to do stuff for you. It can break down tasks into subtasks and to-do lists. It can kick off its own sub-agents to do real work for you. So Cowork is really the mode you should be using for anything that is more complex than just a simple question. And then just use the regular chat if it's just a simple question, you just want to do some brainstorming or something like that. So Cowork is quickly becoming my default go-to mode of interacting with Claude. And now that Anthropic has added the dispatch feature, it's even more useful to me. So go try it out, but also not specific to the plugin that I've been using here. Just think about all of the things that you are doing and that might still be friction or add friction to your workflow. What are the problems you're continuously revisiting? And then think about how can you work backwards from those problems towards the solution, and maybe use AI in one way or other to help you with that. I think problem-solving thinking, that's the right way to apply AI, and not, hey, there's this cool technology, let's do something. I'm going to put together a lot more information into a blog post, so please go and check out the blog post. I'll put the link down in the description. And please, of course, like and subscribe, but also write a comment and just write down, hey, what would you do if you had a chief of staff? And why are you using AI, and how to do exactly that? Again, think about the Fifth Element movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's a great movie. Or think about these people that keep hovering around those executives and giving them everything they need. Now is a great time to start exploring this concept on your own and think about how you can use something like Claude Cowork to do it for you. Thank you.